Welcome back. We are so glad you could join us today for a very special custom-tailored deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are traveling back to a foundational piece of tabletop role-playing history.
Oh, absolutely foundational.
Right. We are looking at the classic source material, the module known as Palace of the Silver Princess.
And just to clarify for everyone listening, for those of you who follow tabletop lore really closely,
Yes, the infamous one.
exactly, we are specifically looking at the legendary green cover edition, Module B3.
It is such a fascinating text to study, and our mission for today's deep dive is zeroing in on a very specific, incredibly rich section of this source material.
We are looking exclusively at Part 3 of the module.
Dungeon Level 1.
Right. We're going to examine the Wandering Monsters table, and then we'll take a walk through a sequence of encounters spanning rooms 5 through 12.
Because looking at the structure of this document, Part 3 really seems to be where the training wheels just completely come off for the players.
They really do. It's a harsh transition.
I mean, the previous sections of the module function as a programmed adventure, right? Essentially a tutorial that holds your hand through every single choice.
Yeah, read this text. Pick option A or B.
But once you hit Part 3, the format completely changes.
It represents a major shift in the game's overall philosophy. Part 3 moves away from that introductory format and drops you into a true sandbox.
And for those of you listening who might be unfamiliar with that term, a sandbox basically means the players dictate the direction of the story.
Right, through their own choices, rather than following a predetermined script.
The game master is no longer just reading multiple choice prompts.
No, they are now acting as an impartial referee in this living, breathing environment. And examining these specific elements, the random encounters, the layout of these initial rooms.
It reveals just how brilliantly the creators wove a cohesive narrative of a kingdom's sudden downfall right into the actual mechanics of the game. And looking at the source text, nothing sets the tone for that fallen kingdom quite like the Wandering Monsters table.
It really is the perfect tone setter.
It stands out immediately because it's not just a random list of targets for players to swing a sword at.
Far from it.
First, let's look at the mechanics of it. The rules state that every other turn, the referee rolls a six-sided die.
Just a standard D6.
Right. And a roll of a 1 triggers an encounter. The threat appears 20 to 120 feet away.
So it might be stepping through a doorway, or maybe lurking around a dark corner.
Yeah. But rather than just looking at the math here, what does this specific table actually tell us about the ecosystem of this palace?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this table is a functioning ecosystem of chaos, all created by a central disaster.
The ruby.
Right? The catastrophic event that ruined this kingdom was caused by a massive ruby called the Eye of Eric.
And this ruby basically shattered the dimensional barriers.
Exactly. And the Wandering Monsters reflect the different factions that have flooded into this massive vacuum of power. Let's look at the specific roles. If you roll a 1, you encounter acolytes.
The cultists.
Yes. These are low-level clerics serving an evil being named Eric. The text gives them a highly specific visual design, too.
Oh, the robes. Blood-red robes with large hoods that hide their faces.
Right, and they're decorated with 100 eyes. Plus, they carry shields painted with a single massive red eye.
It's such a striking image. And there's a mechanical hierarchy built in there, isn't there?
There is. If 4 or more of them appear, they are automatically led by a higher-level cleric.
So you have the organized cultists, the ones actively trying to bring this evil entity into the world.
True believers.
But then the table pivots to opportunists. Rolls 2 and 4 bring in bandits or kobolds.
Which highlights the broader impact of the disaster. The bandits, who are labeled as NPCs.
Non-player characters.
Right, meaning the human extras in this world. They, along with the kobolds, aren't part of Eric's grand plan at all.
They're just scavengers.
Exactly. Drawn by the magical lure of the ruby, hoping to loot a fallen kingdom while all the authorities are neutralized.
And then if you roll a 5 or a 6, you get the muscle, orcs and skeletons.
The heavy hitters. The orcs have gathered specifically to assist those creepy acolytes we mentioned earlier.
While the skeletons are just hordes of the undead spontaneously released by the ruby's dark power.
Yeah. So on a single table, you have religious fanatics, opportunistic looters, brute mercenaries, and supernatural fallout.
Which brings us to perhaps the most interesting entry on the entire table. Roll number 3.
Ah, yes.
The Black Bear.
The black bear is just a brilliant inclusion.
It completely subverts the expectations of a typical dungeon crawler.
It really does.
I mean, this isn't a demon or a goblin. It's simply a 6-foot-tall omnivore.
Just a normal animal. The text explains that it wandered into the caverns beneath the palace, and then the disaster struck.
A magical red glow surrounded the entire palace, trapping everything inside.
But so this bear's just stuck. It's confused. And the notes specifically state that it is extremely hungry.
And the rules explicitly point out that if the players simply give the bear some food, it won't attack.
If we contrast this with the standard funhouse dungeons of that era,
Where monsters were often just placed randomly in 10 by 10 rooms waiting to be killed.
exactly. This is a massive leap forward in game design. It actively encourages players to use empathy and problem solving.
In a space where your first instinct is usually to draw a weapon the second a creature appears.
Right, the game forces you to evaluate the situation. This bear isn't evil. It's a victim of the exact same disaster you are investigating.
Rewarding compassion in a tangible way like that elevates the entire experience.
It absolutely does.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that sense of a lived-in world carries right over into the static rooms of the dungeon.
The environmental storytelling is top-notch.
Imagine you are exploring this palace for the first time. You walk into room 5, which the map labels as the library.
You'd expect shelves of ancient lore, spell books, that kind of thing.
But instead, there are no books, no scrolls, just reed pens, dried inkwells, scraps of paper, and massive oak tables violently overturned.
A place of quiet study completely trashed by the invasion.
And hidden behind those overturned tables, hiding in all the litter, is a family of 5 kobolds.
And they aren't standing in the middle of the room waiting to fight.
No, they're just trying to stay out of sight. They will only engage if the players discover them or if they have to defend their lair.
Plus, they've managed to scavenge a grand total of 50 copper pieces.
50 copper, that's basically pocket change.
Right, which paints them less as conquering monsters and more as frightened squatters.
It's kind of sad, really.
It is. And that behavior contrasts sharply with what you find just down the hall in room 7, the pantry.
Oh man, room 7.
You walk in, and the floor is covered in broken pots, wooden plates, and spoons. Everything has been thrown out of the cabinets by 5 earthy-skinned goblins with glowing red eyes,
Just making a massive mess.
frantically tearing the kitchen apart. And the text notes, they are absolutely furious because they haven't found any valuables in the pantry.
They are essentially throwing a tantrum because a pantry only contains food, not gold.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the mechanics step in to ground these creatures in a biological reality. The text reminds the referee that goblins live underground and suffer a penalty to their attack rolls in full daylight.
Now, the players' torches or lanterns don't trigger this penalty, do they?
No, they don't. But the rule reminds everyone at the table that these are subterranean invaders who are completely out of their element, angrily tearing apart a human kitchen.
And we see that lived in reality in room 6 as well.
The storeroom.
Right, it's just a storeroom filled with grain sacks and stacked barrels of beer. On the surface, that might sound like a really boring room to explore.
Just a bunch of supplies.
But looking closely, it tells a story about logistics. The looters ignored the grain and the beer because they are hyper-focused on shiny valuables.
Leaving the mundane supplies entirely untouched.
That detail makes the fortress feel like a real place that required actual supply chains to function.
That is a crucial point. It adds these really nice layers of realism to the fantasy.
We see the invaders acting out again in room 9, the Hobgoblin Barracks. This used to be the sleeping quarters for the palace guards.
But now, 6 brutish hobgoblins have moved right into the guards' beds.
Just making themselves at home.
There are footlockers and musty blankets everywhere, and these hobgoblins are sitting on the beds, arguing with each other so loudly that the text specifically says the players can hear them through the closed door.
Without even having to make a mechanical check for it.
Right, no dice roll needed. If we connect this to historical parallels, it mirrors the reality of a disorganized mercenary occupation.
Yeah.
When you hear about an evil force taking over a palace, you might picture a unified, disciplined military holding strategic points.
Stormtroopers marching in lockstep.
Exactly. But that's not what's happening here. These forces lack centralized leadership. They're squabbling over beds, hiding behind library tables, and destroying pantries.
It makes the environment feel incredibly dynamic and chaotic.
It really breathes life into the dungeon.
But it's not all just goblins throwing tantrums and bad roommates arguing, is it? Looking at the notes for room 8, the dining hall, the tone seems to shift dramatically. What exactly happened in there?
Room 8 introduces a deeply unsettling, eerie atmosphere. The visual is straight out of Pompeii.
Wow, Pompeii.
You walk into this grand room, and seated around a large table are 20 statues of men and women, completely frozen mid-supper.
Just locked in time.
One statue is in the middle of cutting a piece of meat. Another has a wine cup raised to their lips. When Eric's power pulsed through the ruby into this dimension, it instantly turned most of the palace inhabitants to stone.
And there is a highly specific detail in the text regarding the table itself. It notes that the food on the table did not turn to stone.
Right.
The food is cold and stale, but it is not moldy or decayed.
It is a masterclass in the storytelling principle of show, don't tell. The game designers didn't give the game master a long, boring monologue to read to the players about when the tragedy happened.
No lore dumps.
Exactly. Instead, they used the temperature and condition of a fictional piece of meat.
That's brilliant.
By describing the food as stale, but not rotten, the players deduce the timeline themselves. They realize the threat is immediate. The kingdom fell just days ago.
That forensic approach to storytelling is even more pronounced in Room 10, the deserted barracks. When you walk in, the room is completely destroyed.
Total devastation.
Bunks are broken, stools are smashed, and there are 5 corpses littering the floor.
This is where players are really invited to act as detectives. The game master is given the narrative of these corpses to unpack based on the players' investigations.
So what's the story there?
2 of the bodies are human palace guards. The other 3 are goblins. The text explains that those 2 guards had been out on patrol when the disaster struck. Seeing the red glow descending, they barely managed to rush back inside the palace to escape it. But the moment they got inside, they ran face first into a party of goblins who had sneaked into the palace through the lower caverns to loot the barracks.
Oh man, so they escaped a magical cataclysm only to run straight into an ambush.
A desperate, bloody fight ensued right there in the barracks. The 2 guards were killed, but they fought hard enough to take 3 goblins down with them.
Heroes to the end.
And the surviving goblins, enraged at watching their group die for a room that held no treasure, smashed all the furniture before leaving.
That is intense.
You have a complete 3-act tragedy laid out purely through the arrangement of broken furniture and bodies on a floor.
It's amazing how much narrative impact is packed into a room that technically has 0 living monsters and 0 treasure in it.
Nothing to fight, nothing to steal.
It exists purely for atmospheric storytelling.
And it works perfectly.
Speaking of atmosphere, let's lead you toward the lower caverns. As you move into Room 11, the cavern entrance, there is a massive sensory shift.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got wind whistling softly through a dark, damp cave. There's a musky smell in the air. Straw is scattered across the floor, mixed with jagged bones.
A very grim scene.
And chained to one of the walls is a large ape with pale white fur. As soon as it sees you, it starts rattling its heavy chain and roaring.
And here we have an echo of the black bear from the wandering monster table we talked about earlier.
Right.
The tragedy of the white ape is that it was once a guard animal for the palace. It was fed so regularly that it became somewhat of a pet.
A palace pet.
The text actually notes that it wouldn't even attack people who were wearing guard uniforms. But now, its masters are either dead or turned to stone. This poor animal hasn't been fed in days, leaving it terrified and starving.
And just like the bear, this encounter tests the players. The ape's chain is long enough that you can't just walk past it without dealing with it.
It blocks the path entirely.
But if you simply give the ape some food, it calms down. It allows you safe passage deeper into the caverns.
It reinforces a recurring theme in this level of the dungeon. The invading forces and the corrupted magic are the true monsters. The natural animals are just collateral damage.
Okay, we have to finish our tour of Dungeon Level 1 with a massive tonal shift. You are walking out of that damp, smelly cavern and stepping into Room 12.
The oaken cabinet.
This room is wild. It is a beautiful hexagonal room. The floor is made of white marble, heavily veined with black and gold.
Total luxury.
Sitting against the west wall is this gorgeous oaken cabinet intricately carved with scenes of springtime. You open the cabinet and it is filled with pale green towels.
Nice and clean.
And sitting on top of the towels are bars of pink soap that have been hand-carved into the shapes of dolphins.
Pink dolphin soaps. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this room highlights one of the most classic tabletop tropes.
Hiding deadly danger inside beautiful, mundane places.
Exactly. Because hidden under those lovely green towels and pink dolphin soaps is a grayish-white spitting cobra. and it is fast asleep.
The pink dolphin soaps are such a specific, luxurious detail to include right before a venomous snake attack.
The contrast is what makes it so effective. If the players disturb the towels, the cobra attacks, and its mechanics are genuinely frightening for a low-level adventurer.
What does it do?
It can spit a stream of venom up to 6 feet away, specifically aiming for its victim's eyes.
Yikes.
If the spit hits, the victim has to make a saving throw against poison.
And a saving throw, for those of you who might not roll dice every weekend, is a mechanic where a player tests their luck and stats to avoid a severe consequence.
In this case, failing that roll means permanent blindness.
Permanent. Wow.
Yeah. The Game Master can also choose to have it bite for minor damage, but the threat of blindness from a creature hiding in a pile of luxury bath items creates incredibly high stakes.
But there is a reason to risk digging through those towels. Sitting right next to this hidden threat is a large golden key worth 150 gold pieces.
A huge reward for level 1.
So you have luxury, deadly danger, and treasure, all bundled into one perfectly designed trap.
It demands that the players pay attention to their surroundings. You can't just rush through this space kicking down doors. Sometimes the most beautiful room holds the most insidious threat.
So what does this all mean? We've just walked through a fraction of Dungeon Level 1, but this deep dive reveals something fundamental about why source material like this endures.
It really stands the test of time.
A truly memorable experience isn't just about the math on a character sheet. It is entirely about environmental storytelling.
You don't need a narrator to explain the downfall of the Palace of the Silver Princess.
Yeah.
You just need to look around.
Exactly. The violently overturned library tables, the stale food sitting in front of frozen statues, the loud hobgoblins squatting in guard beds, and the starving pets chained in the dark.
They all paint a vivid, immersive picture of a fallen kingdom.
The true magic of this design is how it uses simple elements to evoke complex responses. It evokes empathy with the starving bear and the white ape.
It evokes a sense of tragedy with the frozen diners and the dead guards.
It evokes tension with the cobra and the towels. It elevates the players from being mere combatants to being active participants and investigators in an unfolding drama.
The story is always in the details. Always.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to take away from this deep dive. Consider how the placement of a threat completely changes its narrative impact.
That's a great point.
If you put a spitting cobra in a dark, rocky cave, it's just another expected obstacle. But if you take that exact same cobra and hide it beneath plush green towels and pink dolphin-shaped soaps in a pristine marble room,
Suddenly it becomes an unforgettable story.
I invite you to think about how contrasting elements in your own lives, in the projects you build, or in your favorite books and movies are often the secret ingredient that turns a standard experience into a lasting memory.
Such a powerful takeaway.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep exploring, keep looking at the details, and we'll see you next time.